Welcome to the Phillip Wiley Show. Take a look behind the curtain of professional hacking and hear compelling discussions with guests from diverse backgrounds who share a common curiosity and passion for challenges and their job. And now, here's your host, offensive security professional, educator, mentor, and author, Phillip Wiley.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Phillip Wiley Show. I'm really excited to have Evan Ottinger joining me today. We've been connected through social media for a while, and we finally got to meet during Wild West Hacking Fest last year. So it was cool to get to meet him in person, as well as some of the other folks from TCM Security and TCM Academy. So Evan's got an interesting story, which I think is going to be helpful and interesting to some of you folks. So I'm happy to bring on Evan. So welcome to the show, Evan.
Hi, Phil. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for joining. It's great to finally get to meet you at Wild West Hacking Fest. I'm disappointed didn't take more time to speak at Hack SpaceCon.
Yeah, if I knew I was going to talk to you only that first day there, I probably would have spent more time with you, picking your brain a little bit. But yeah, unfortunately, I spent the second day doing more touristy things. But it's still good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you. Good to take advantage and see things when you can. But sometimes you get those conferences. There's so many people you want to see, and trying to get around everyone, and you just sometimes think you'll have more time. But hopefully we'll get more time the next time. I assume that you're going to summer camp.
I'm probably going to miss out on summer camp this year, but I know you're not going to be at Deadwood, but I think I'm going to try to be there. So looks like we're going to miss each other. But
yeah, I really wanted to go to Wild West Hacking Fest again, but my daughter's wedding is that Saturday. And I thought, the past couple of years or so, the way airlines have screwed up, I thought it'd be my luck that I would be there and trying to get back for my daughter's wedding and my flight be canceled. So I just can't really take that risk.
Yeah, that'd be pretty unfortunate if that happened. So I don't blame you.
I would be very disappointed. I'm sure my daughter wouldn't be happy about it, but I'd be very disappointed. So
yeah, for sure.
So yeah, why don't you share with our listeners your background, kind of how you got started and where you're at today?
Okay. Yeah, so I feel like I'll go ahead and go way back to my first attempt at college, just because I think that's important to share. It's not all, success stories. Originally, I went to school at the University of North Florida for music performance, and I didn't do so hot, kind of lost my way there. Wound out getting on academic suspension, and during that period that I was out of school, I decided that I was going to enlist in the military. Originally, I was looking at the Air Force, and then there was like a 6-month wait, and then I found out that I could just go to the Marine Corps office and be at MEPS the next week and go ahead and process into the military. So I went ahead and did that, and then shipped off in March of 2013, and then I did 5 years as a Middle Eastern linguist. Sort of during that time, I had my love of technology rekindled because I was, very interested in computers as a kid growing up, and then getting back, into a technical field and doing technical things with radios specifically. It was really interesting for me and fascinating, and I decided that I wanted to get into IT as I got out of the military and transitioned back to being a civilian. And so I talked to some of the sysadmins that worked, alongside me in my unit, and I kind of picked their brains a little bit and asked for advice. And they pretty much all said the same thing, was that, cybersecurity is where you want to go. That's where the money is, that sort of thing. So that kind of piqued my interest. So I decided to start there. A lot of people recommended getting Security Plus so that I could use my DoD experience just to move right into the DoD as a sysadmin and do that sort of work. So that's kind of the route I took. But I got out of the military in 2018, and then I started my undergraduate degree at Austin Peay State University in Tennessee, and I completed my bachelor's in computer information systems. But at that time that I was selecting a focus, they had a new concentration in security. So I, of course, went ahead and picked that. And I also did a double concentration in systems development. So I learned, like the software side of things, as well as the I would say very foundational, fundamental security things at that point. And then, as I was finishing up my degree, I got a job working at the help desk at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, which was, right next to Austin P. And I worked, I think, I can't remember how long. It was about a year. I worked about a year at the help desk, and then I got offered a position at Springfield, Virginia, to work as a software engineer. So I took advantage of that and moved out to Virginia, and I've been here ever since. I've switched jobs a few times, going from being on site to fully remote. I worked at a company called 6Gen, and that was how I kind of got into the cybersecurity field. And then I worked there a little bit over a year, and then during my time there, I met Heath, mostly through correspondence on Twitter. And I took a couple of freelance gigs from him for things like implementing dark mode on Teachable, for instance. And then he came to me and said that he was going to start building out the development platform, or the certification platform for the PNPT, and also any other future certifications that they launch. And I offered to work on that as a 1099 freelancer. And then I did that for a few months, and then I ended up leaving 6Gen, and Heath offered me a position as a full-time employee. So I've been there ever since. Officially titled as a security engineer, but I do primarily development work in my day-to-day. And I wrote the new certification platform, and I've helped migrate PNPT from the original system to the new one. And then I migrated, or I guess I developed PJMR from what Matt Keeley, Husky Hacks, created. And then I migrated that over to the certification platform that I built. And that's kind of where I'm at today.
Well, that's pretty cool. I'm sure, that development background is bound to be pretty valuable for security, because I see people that they get into it, they don't have that, but then sometimes you see what's possible when you have that heavy sysadmin background and development background, some of the things that you can do.
Yeah, I've definitely found it helpful. That's one of the questions you see a lot. Like, people always ask, do I need to know how to program to work in cybersecurity? And the answer, of course, is no. You don't necessarily even need to be technical. You can do just fine going the GRC route and doing nothing but writing policy, as long as you have like the foundational knowledge. But I would always say that, being able to program certainly helps. I've never once regretted knowing how to code. So
one of the things that I just kind of see out there too is, as you mentioned, it's not necessary to start, really not necessary at all. But then you see the people that really are really good at what they do. If they know some kind of scripting or coding, there's just so much more that they can do. It's just kind of, it seems like when you're looking at two resumes and you see the capabilities of someone with the development versus the one without, sometimes it's kind of, in my opinion, you kind of have that edge having the development.
Yeah, I'd say so. It's certainly something that I, look for anytime that we're hiring anybody, and I'm invested in that process. If they have any sort of scripting abilities or whatever, I always find that as a positive, because so much of your day-to-day work can be automated, and especially, TCM, we're a fairly small company still. So we need as much of a force multiplier as we can get. And I would say being able to program is definitely an advantage in a shop like that.
Yeah, speaking of the automation, that's kind of like Jeff Foley, the Amass creator. One of the things he did in some of his roles was try to automate everything he could do just to make his job easier, and eventually create the Amass tool to do the same thing. So you just kind of see that, and then you look at like SpectreOps. So many of the people there that know how to code, they're creating different tools and stuff. So it seems like definitely a force multiplier.
Yeah, I jokingly tell Heath sometimes that I'm trying to automate myself out of a job, but hopefully that day never actually gets here. But yeah, definitely it makes things a lot easier whenever you have, the infrastructure built out into scripts, and you can just, run them.
So for someone getting started these days doing the sysadmin stuff, would you just recommend diving into your traditional sysadmin or lean more towards the cloud side?
I think you can kind of do both at the same time. I would say start with the traditional sysadmin route, because all the cloud is instead of having the physical hardware, all we've done is we've created an API that you can interact with. But if you don't have the foundational knowledge of how to interact with, equipment like servers and, networks and things like that, then you're going to be kind of lost when you're trying to work with the abstractions of those things in the cloud. So, honestly, the more foundational knowledge that you can learn, the better, because all of that stuff is just immensely helpful trying to migrate over to the cloud for sure.
Yeah, as far as like educational resources, what would you recommend someone start out with there to build that skill set?
If I was starting from scratch, I'd probably start with Automate the Boring Stuff. Can't remember the author offhand, but automatetheboringstuff.com, I believe, is a free web version of that. I believe it's No Starch Press book on Python scripting. It's exactly what it says, how to start coding and, automating the things that you don't necessarily like doing at work, like editing spreadsheets and, sending mass emails and stuff like that. That's a good place to start learning how to code. As far as sysadmin stuff goes, I really don't think you can do better than Professor Messer for the price. It's 100% free on YouTube. That was the resource I used when I was coming through the help desk and learning, A+, Net+, Sec+. I definitely relied pretty heavily on Professor Messer. There are other paid resources out there, but I just think at that level, there's so much free content that you really don't, you don't really need any money to get started. You don't really need to bankroll that at all. But the main thing would be just as soon as possible, finding, employment in that area. Because, theory is great, but at the end of the day, if you can't actually put hands on keyboard or, do the repairs and stuff on the hardware, then, the theory doesn't really matter so much. So for me, like the fastest way that I learned was working in the help desk. Just the foundational knowledge of how an enterprise actually functions day to day versus what you read in a book.
Yeah, things can definitely be different, especially sometimes you consider the author may not have a background in that. It may just be purely academic, or either they're a writer and they just research the subject and put out the book. So what are some resources you'd recommend for getting some hands-on stuff? Are you a fan of TryHackMe or anything like that?
Yeah, I'm pretty partial toward TryHackMe. I definitely used that a lot in the beginning when I was, focusing pretty heavily on penetration testing knowledge and skills like that. But they have expanded quite a bit away from just red team skill sets to where I believe there's just foundational IT knowledge now. And then there's also some blue team and maybe even purple team by now courses out there. But yeah, they're definitely a good resource. Unfortunately, their subscription price just went up, I think, but it's still, in my opinion, pretty reasonable, especially if you have a student email, you can get the student discount. Yeah, I would hands down recommend that. And then of course I'm a TCM security employee, but so I'm a little bit biased by saying this, but I think that we definitely have excellent resources at the price point for, getting into more cybersecurity stuff. We plan to add more IT centered work in the future, but, for now, if you're trying to bridge the gap between just general IT knowledge and cybersecurity, I think, as far as price point and quality goes, you can't really beat us. I feel comfortable saying that without it being a shameless plug, just because it was a resource that I used before I ever worked at the company. So I definitely believe in what we're doing here.
Well, in my opinion, you're offering Udemy priced education, but at a much higher quality. There's some good quality stuff on Udemy, but there's also some stuff that's not so great, but just that price point is kind of hard to beat. It is nice that someone doesn't have to be working in IT or security to afford those. I know there's some courses that I took whenever I was getting to pen testing, like the OSCP, but when you're making, already making six figures a year, it's easier to afford that compared to when people are trying to break in, and that's a little more tougher to bite off.
Yeah, it's definitely a huge barrier to entry price, especially given that there's a need for penetration testers and general IT and security professionals on a global scale at this point. And, most people can afford to, drop $2,500 on a course or more, upwards of $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 for a certification. It's just unreasonable. Unless you have an employer that's willing to pay it, or if you have some sort of a scholarship or something like that. So, I would definitely agree with you there.
So what about cloud? So, you mentioned your sysadmin background. So would you start off with AWS or Azure?
So I would personally start with AWS, and I personally did start with AWS. The reason being that they have the vast majority of the market share, like compared to every other cloud provider combined. I could be wrong on the numbers here, but if I remember correctly, AWS has more than every other cloud provider combined. So unless you are targeting a specific job role that uses, Oracle or Azure or something else, GCP, or if you're looking at like a generalist cloud, multi-cloud environment, I would recommend AWS just because the market share is there, and the odds of finding a job, especially, with the economy the way it is right now, anything you can do to boost your odds of getting employment, I think is a win. So yeah, I would target AWS.
So what kind of recommendations would you have for anyone trying to get into the industry, whether it's a sysadmin job or security? What are some recommendations you have there?
I think the biggest thing is honestly networking. All the opportunities that I've had since my first software engineering job have come from networking. The hardest way into a company is going through the front door, because you have to bypass, all the HR filters. You have to get through the hiring manager to even talk to one of the technical leaders that you might be working with. But if you know people, they know people. So it's a lot easier to find out about positions before they're listed via word of mouth, or, to have somebody with a little bit more of a following to share your resume on social media and get your name out there. And then to advocate for you as, somebody with a lot of potential. So I would recommend doing things like, it doesn't even have to be in person. It could be virtual, but attending conferences. And then another good thing would be meetups, local meetups in town. You never know who you're going to, run into at those things. Like you're based out of Dallas, right?
Yes. Yep.
So do you ever go to Dallas Hackers?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm one of the original members. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty funny. So Tinkersec then?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So he actually moved out to my neck of the woods, and then him and I linked up, and we founded Fredericksburg Hackers as a fork off of Dallas.
Okay.
But that's been a really amazing opportunity. We've had a lot of people in the local area show up, just with the similar interests, and it's been a really, really great way to network. Like I've met people that I never thought I would, like Tinkersec and Mubix, a few others.
Yeah, you're in a good area because seeing some of the meetups there. It's interesting because I've known Tinker since before his IT career. I mean, before his security career.
Yeah.
When I first met him back in 2013, he was an IT recruiter.
Oh wow!
So yeah, it's been pretty amazing to see that guy, his career grow, and how quickly he caught on to things was pretty amazing.
Yeah, he's got just a ton of stories. Absolutely a fun person to sit and listen to talk about, his adventures, especially in the physical pen test stories. Those are always fun. But yeah, I think that's the way to do it, because, you're not just going at it alone and using the resources that you have, which might be limited. But if you meet people like that who are already, well known in the industry, and then they see that you have potential and value, then they can easily network you into the other tiers of the industry that you might not have normally had access to.
Yeah, definitely. I've seen a lot of that in our local community that, and when you go to these meetups, introduce yourself, talk to people, just don't sit off in the corner. Because if people know you, they know your skill set, what you're looking for, they will help you out. Because I was teaching at Dallas College, and people would always come to me looking for entry-level pen testers. And there was people I knew from the local community that I knew they had the skill set and that they could do
Mhm.
it. And so I'd also recommend them as well. So if people know what you can do and you're out plugged in the community, people try to help you out.
Yeah, and that's definitely one of the benefits is we like on our Meetup Discord, we have a career channel where people share job listings on their teams, or they even give you a heads up like, hey, we're hiring soon. The job listing's not out yet, so just keep an eye on it. And just having that little bit of a leg up on the competition is really, I guess it can't be understated for how helpful it is.
Yeah, I know I've mentioned this several times on this show and the other podcast. One of the things I ran into from getting referrals is I went to a local OWASP meeting in Dallas. The presenter worked at US Bank. They had openings, and he said, if anyone's interested in a job at US Bank, let me know. I'll get your resume to the hiring manager. So I did that. I gave him my resume. They got it to the hiring manager. So I had an interview probably within a week, and second interview and a job offer within a couple of weeks, kind of quick. And at the same time, I applied for a job at Bank of America. And so this is after 5 years of consulting as a pen tester, OSCP, SANS GWAPT cert. Was more than qualified for the Bank of America job. I applied online the normal way people do, and it took a year to hear back from them. They had opening at the time, so I didn't hear from a year. So these algorithms, if it's going to make it difficult for someone with experience, it's going to be even more difficult for someone with little to no experience.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because I definitely, probably for the entire year after I was job hunting, I kept getting rejection letters from employers that I'd forgotten I'd applied to. So it's like, yeah, it's just not an efficient system at all.
Yeah, it's just bypassing the HR firewall. I mean, I've worked for companies that I'd seen that actually copied someone else's job description. So what is even personalized to the company? And they'd actually forgot to take out the other company's name out of the job description. And the people developing these job descriptions don't really know what's needed for that role. So they make it near impossible sometimes.
Yeah, they just put every tech stack and every buzzword that they can think of on the job listings. So it's impossible to have all the experience.
Yeah. So it's like unicorn hunting. So they're looking for someone, and then the money they want to pay for these roles, they want someone. I guess one of the most annoying things is to see these roles that are entry level, and they want you to have 3 to 5 years worth of experience for entry level.
Yeah. Or when they want you to have a specific skill, and they want you to have more years experience than that technology has existed. That's my favorite.
I've seen that, and I love it. There was someone that actually created one of the languages or something, or one of the technologies that was interviewing for a job, and ran into something like that. And he was saying, yeah, this technology hasn't been around that long, and I actually created it,
I remember seeing that. I think it was Swift, but don't quote me on that.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds about right. Pretty interesting. It's like the best meme is the one with all the children in the hard hats, and it's talking about something about, job experience. They're looking for someone entry level, but they want, 10 years of experience of this, a bachelor's degree, and all these certifications. And
yeah, it's just, I don't know. The people that you're targeting with those job listings, I don't think are on the job hunt. They're going in through the side doors.
Yep.
Which isn't it? I think Black Hills has I don't know if it's a series or if it's just like a YouTube video or something about job hunting, like a pen tester, where you're trying to, you're just trying to get in. It doesn't matter how.
Yeah, it's that series that Jason Blanchard, Banjo Crashland, did for Black Hills. He used to stream routinely, and I've talked to several people that have used that, and they said it's helped a lot. So yeah, it's a good recommendation. Yeah,
I definitely recommend an approach like that, to even if you're not even targeting a security position, just getting into any field in general. That's probably the way to do it.
So we're getting down towards the end of the show. Is there anything that you'd like to share or mention that we didn't cover?
I don't know. It's been a pretty good conversation, I think. Again, I want to thank you for having me on. So,
thanks for joining. It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to the next time we get to hang out. Hopefully it's sometime this year, but
yeah, hopefully. If not, I'll definitely see you on the conference circuit in the coming years. We can talk about bear wrestling.
Well, thanks again. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to The Phillip Wiley Show. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. In the meantime, to learn more about Phillip, go to thehackermaker.com and connect with him on LinkedIn and Twitter @Phillip Wiley. Until next time.